Deep humility and gratitude that I stand before you today, here in Owerri, the heartland of Igbo land, to chair this historic conference, marking the 96th anniversary of the historic Eastern Nigerian Women Revolt of 1929. I stand before you today, not only as an academic, but as a daughter of the soil, a custodian of our collective memory, and a voice echoing the unyielding resolve of those extraordinary women who rose when silence was no longer an option. I commend the Ofo Educational Foundation and its visionary convener, Dr. Ugoji, for creating this vital space for remembrance, scholarship, and moral reflection. Nations that forget their heroes or misname their revolutions risk losing their soul. Societies progress when they pause, not merely to celebrate, but to interrogate their past and realign their future. This conference offers us that opportunity. What we are remembering today was not a riot. It was a revolution, a women's war of World War I. In 1929, Nigeria was governed through colonial systems designed for extraction rather than justice. The warrant chief system, which was adding to Igbo political culture, unaccountable to the people they ruled. The spark of resistance came with the proposed taxation of women. That spark became a flame when Nwayerowa confronted the warrant chief who sought to count her property. What followed was extraordinary. Women, market traders, farmers, mothers mobilized across Aba, Oloko, Benin, Owerri, and beyond. Through kinship networks and market associations, employing indigenous political tools, such as sitting on the man, their voices rang out. We will not pay. We will not be counted like ghosts. That uprising spread rapidly. Colonial offices were occupied, records destroyed, and authority challenged. When the dust settled, over 50 women have been killed by colonial gunfire. Their sacrifice compelled reforms, weakening the warrant chief system, and planting seeds of political consciousness that later failed Nigeria's independence struggle. These women were not university graduates. Many of them were not literate by Western standards, yet they possessed political intelligence, moral authority, and civic courage that even today's educated elite might envy. They organized through market networks, women associations, and indigenous knowledge structures. They transformed the colonial administration of African women into a strategic advantage. They proved a timeless truth. Leadership is exercised, not appointed. Power resides not in titles, but in organized people bound by purpose. The Aba Women Revolt was not just an isolated event. It belongs to a broader Nigerian of women resistance. A few years later, in the Southwest, the Empower Women's Revolt, led by Femina Ransom Kuti, confronted unjust taxation and authoritarian rule. Across ethnic lines, Nigerian women demanded accountability from colonial authorities and from local power structures alike. They were not acts of disobedience, they were acts of destiny, assertions of women's rights to dignity, voice, and participation in governance. And so, we must now ask ourselves the most uncomfortable question. What lessons have we learned? Can we honestly say that we, the women and leaders of today, are living up to the moral courage, discipline, and communal strength of our foremothers? Can we say that? Our women of 1929 fought to preserve values and protect economic and moral fabric of society. Today, however, we confront a different kind of crisis, a crisis of values, character, and conscience. We see rising insecurity, drug abuse, human trafficking, organ harvesting, moral confusion, culturalization of relationships. These are not imported problems. They are brought from our homes, communities, and reflect failures of moral leadership. This signals a need for another kind of women's revolt. The first was against external domination. This one must be against internal decay. For the Southeast, the revolt reminds us of our heritage of accountable leadership and women's authority, embodied in institutions such as Umuada and market associations. As the region confronts marginalization and insecurity, this history calls us to 1. Strengthen women's entrepreneurship as engines of inclusive growth. 2. Invest in education that respects indigenous knowledge. And reject unaccountable leadership, whether colonial or contemporary. For Nigeria as a whole, the report speaks powerfully to our present. No taxation without representation. No development without grassroots impact. No democracy without women. Women constitute half of our population, yet occupy less than 10% of elective offices. Therefore, women's demand that we move beyond symbolism to structural inclusion in politics, education, healthcare, environmental policy, and governance. Let this conference not end up with applause and photographs. Let it back women's cooperative and cultural archives, value reorientation initiatives rooted in our traditions, the integration of the 1929 revolt into school curricula, arts, and community programs. Let the markets, the arts, academia, and governance unite again, as they did nearly a century ago. To our young women, I hope many of you are here. Your value is not in beauty or material display, but in knowledge, virtue, and courage. To our leaders, the voice of the market woman matters as much as the decree of the politician. The women of 1929 sang, as they marched, they danced, as they defied oppression. And although many were martyred, their legacy whispers to us to know. We are the rules that hold the tree. Uproot us and the mighty fall. May we, the inheritors of this legacy, nurture those rules so that Nigeria may stand tall, united, just, and prosperous. God bless the leaders of Nigeria. God bless Imo State. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.